Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how I sow my seeds early. This is how I do it. It's not the only way and it may not be the best way to do it, but I'm going to sow a lot of different types of seeds in this one seed tray. I'm doing that because I'm limited on space in my house, and that's where these are going to go. They're going to go on a shelf under a heat mat and under some, or on a heat mat and under some lights in my house. I don't have a lot of space. This isn't the most efficient way. If I had a heated greenhouse, I would sow each individual seed into an individual module. That would cut down on having to dig out the seedlings and then transplant them into a bigger pot. This adds, doing it this way, it adds a lot of time, extra time onto it, because when these get big enough, which hopefully they're not going to grow too fast, because I want them to be able to sit in this tray comfortably enough until it's warm enough outside and in my greenhouse to prick them out, dig them up, it's called pricking out, and pot them up into bigger either modules or pots, to be able to sit in my greenhouse until it's warm enough outside. So when I'm doing it like this, planting them early or starting the seeds early and having them in the house, I'm hoping, even though they're in close quarters with each other, I'm going to have rows of different seeds in this tray, lots of seedlings growing in one tray. There is some risk to it with seedlings growing so close to each other, because they start to compete for nutrients and oxygen, and there's also a risk of, rot, and if some of them rot, then the rot can spread to the rest of them quickly. So this method it's not the most efficient. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the best method. It's not the best practice, but based on how much room I have in my house, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing it like this. And I'm hoping for the best, that we don't get any rot issues or mildew or fungus issues. I'm hoping for the best, but I'll keep a close eye on them. And if anything starts to arise, then I'll make sure that I have on hand some either organic fungicide, organic pesticide, or whatever is needed for keeping the health of the seedlings and the soil in good order. Okay, so I'm using a seed starting mix. It's one that you could get probably at any store. I got this from Walmart, and I have to say beforehand, even though this says that it's organic, it's not sustainable. It's peat based, and it comes out of Canada, and I know my channel is all about being sustainable. However, it's very difficult to find a sustainable source of good seed starting mix. And because I've spent quite a lot of money on these seeds down here, I want to make sure that I'm not throwing my money away, and that I've got a seed starting mix that I know is very good. It's a dual purpose, multi-purpose seed starting mix that's pretty good for starting all seeds. The difference between different mixes is there's a lot of differences in different types, but this I've used before, and it's good for starting, especially if you've got some expensive seeds. Just don't mess with any of the other mixes. Just use this. It comes in a small bag. You don't need a lot, for your expensive seeds. I will say though that this is for seeds, starting seeds. It's got low nutrients. When you're starting seeds, you don't want a potting soil or compost that's high in nutrients. You don't want just your standard potting soil, because you can end up burning your seedlings if there's too much nutrients in it, which usually there is, or if the compost or potting soil isn't sterilized. This is sterilized. You're just risking losing a lot of seedlings. To play it safe, just spend the money on a bag of seed starting mix. This is good. It's not the cheapest, but again, you know, you can be throwing a lot of money away on expensive seeds if you're not starting them off with a good mix. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've cut open the bag, and I'm going to pour this into this container. This mix, I know from past experience, it comes quite dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this in here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of water in there and pre-mix it with some water. Okay, so I've just poured the mix in here, and in this mix, if you use it, you'll be able to see the texture it's very fine. There's no big bits in it, and that's what you want. You want a really nice fine texture for starting your seeds. You don't want, like with a lot of the other compost, they'll have a lot of big bits in them. You don't want that. You want a nice fine mix. This is sphagnum moss based, and it's got a lot of perlite and vermiculite in there. The perlite is for drainage, and it's the vermiculite helps hold on to moisture, so you're not gonna hopefully drown your seeds unintentionally very easily anyways. So what I'm going to do, because this mix is dry, if you feel it, there is some moisture in it, but it just needs a tiny bit more water. You don't want to put too much water in. You do want it more on the dry side when you're starting the seeds, because the risk of having too much water, especially with seeds from plants that are used to growing in areas where the ground might be sandy or dry, having something like the sphagnum moss, which can hold on to water, something like this material, and if you put too much water in, it's going to make it soggy, and those plants may not germinate or just may not, you know, grow very well if their roots are kept too moist. So and you know what, these seedlings, when they emerge, they are very vulnerable. So you just got to go really easy on the moisture. So I'm just going to put, I've got some water here. I'm just going to put a little tiny bit in there and mix it really well, and then I'll put it into my seed tray. I mean, I've only put, I don't know, just a tiny bit in here, and then I'm just going to mix it up. Okay, so I've got the seed starting mix in the tray here. Now I'll just go along and sow my seeds, and I'll show you how I do that. So basically, I kind of treat this like it's like as if you were sowing rows of seeds in the ground. So I'll start over here, and I'll just make a little trench like this, just a row like this. And again, this is how I do it. You might decide that you want to do it a different way, but this is how I do it, and this is how I found that I can get a lot of seeds started in a small space. So I'm going to just start with these pepper seeds. These are Serrano chili pepper seeds. So let's open this packet. So I've got quite a few seeds in there. I'll tip them out into my hand. You can see what's in there. There's a lot, actually. So, I mean, these are from the dollar store, by the way. So this is how much you get in a packet of seeds, and this packet was 25 cents. So I'm just going to go along, and I'm just going to not going to put them super close together, but I am just going to get a bunch in there, and not all of them are going to sprout, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to go right down the line and just sow them like this. And I'm just going to do that with all of the seeds. Now, all the different types of seeds are all different sizes, so you have to bear that in mind as well. I've made a little trench here for these pepper seeds, and I'm not sowing all of them. I'm going to put some of them back because that's probably all I want to sow for those. I was saying, so I've made a little trench for these pepper seeds. They're not super small, but the general rule is you bury the seeds as deep as they are big. So with these pepper seeds, you know, I'm going to just basically just push some of the soil over the top just a little bit, because I don't want them to be buried too deep, because if they're buried too deep, when they start to sprout, they may not be able to get to the surface. So you don't want to cover the seeds too deep. You just want to just barely cover these ones. If they were bigger seeds, then I would put more soil over the top of them, obviously. So I've just covered them there, and I'm going to write a tag to say what they are and put it right at the end here. Now I'm going to sow some eggplants, and the seeds look not that dissimilar. They're a little bit more brown than the chili pepper seeds, but eggplants and chili peppers and sweet peppers, they're all in the same family, so their seeds are all going to look very similar. So they're not tiny, they're not super tiny seeds, so I'm going to treat them the same way. I've made a little furrow in the compost, and I'm just going to put them down the line here. And then I'll go along and put a tag in to say what they are. It's very simple. Anybody can do this, but again, sowing seeds in January or in the colder months, you are going to need to have the equipment necessary to keep them warm, because they will not grow in your house with the temperatures that you have indoors. You need to have the seeds, the roots of the seeds, in contact with heat. Hence having a heat mat. I'll show you a heat mat here. This is a heat mat that I have, and I bought this one on Amazon several years ago. And so this tray will go straight onto will go on top of this mat, and you plug it into the wall, and it keeps it at I think it's like a 75-degree Fahrenheit temperature. So the roots are always having warmth. Okay, so I'm just going to put a tag here, and then that's the eggplant sown. Okay, I'm going to do the Granville mix sweet pepper next. And so again, these are larger seeds. They look very similar to the chili pepper seeds and very similar to the eggplant seeds, and that's because they're all in the same family. They're all solanums. They're also in the nightshade, the deadly nightshade family. And there's a lot of our vegetables are in that group. Believe it or not, we eat a lot of deadly nightshade family vegetables, and they all have a type of poison in them, which is also in deadly nightshade. But they also have a lot of nutrients, so we bred them at one point. I think it was the Aztecs and the Mayans that bred these plants to be more edible, so we can eat them. So I just sowed those bell peppers there.